Computer's running low. Yeah. There's a strip
I
here.
have a strip here.
As long as you're plugged
Yeah.
Long report.
and running under here.
Oh, it's pretty long.
Or we can open up one of these guys too. Oh, maybe that one?
Believe your chair.
See, that's not long enough. It's probably not the same.
This is long enough.
Oh, okay.
Okay, good.
That one.
That's safer.
Yeah. You can extend it over and plug it into it. Yeah, I think that will probably work better.
That's pretty long.
Right. Yeah, that's a nice long one.
It's like a million years old. It's still there, it's still there for like this.
I think it's on.
So, yeah,
Yeah, it's on.
thank you. And that ate up, oh, it's time to start. Okay, that clock on the wall is actually a minute or two fast. It's 7 o'clock. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Pleasantville Recreation Park District Board of Directors for Thursday, September 14th, 2023. It is 7 o'clock. I think I mentioned that. Our meetings are held in person. Members of the public are welcome to attend in person or by sending in emails to our clerk or to phone in and to our general manager. We have a raised hand feature if you'd like to make comments. We will have public comment at every substantive item on our agenda this evening. And with that, I'd like to show that all directors are present tonight and pledge of allegiance. Let's see, Bobby, would you lead us in the pledge this evening?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Bobby. Item number 3 on our agenda is public comment. This is the portion of our meeting where members of the public are invited to address the board on any subject not on our agenda this evening. Is there anyone present from the public this evening who would like to address us? Seeing none, Cindy, do we have any emails?
No, we have
No?
not received.
Michelle, any raised hands?
No raised hands.
All right, thank you. Close public comment and move on to item number 4, which is first 4.1, report by Larry Tramatola of Tramatola LLC regarding our initial survey results and next steps. Michelle, could you lead us off?
Yes, I'm going to ask Larry to come join us in the guest chair. And so, so tonight, as all of the members of the board know, we've done an informal survey that we passed out at various events and mailed to 11,000 of our most likely voters. Just to get some initial feedback on kind of where things stood. I included the survey results in as of last Friday in your packet. And so those are the complete results. We have received a few additional stragglers in. So we continue to get some input, but I'm going to turn this over to Larry because he's going to kind of walk you through some of the highlights, what he's learned and some next steps. And so then tonight, after Larry's presentation, please feel free board to ask questions, get further clarification. I do want there's a draft of a thank you card that's going to go out. So if you have any comments on that, because we would like to get that out next week. So if you have any comments on that for staff to consider, please let us know during this time as well. Go ahead, Larry.
Thank you, Michelle, and nice seeing you all again. I like these touch base meetings that make sure we're all on the same page moving forward. I think since I was here last time, we made a lot of progress. In fact, I was quite stunned with the response that we've gotten from the questionnaire. As Michelle said, there were over 1,000 people responded, lots of comments, a lot of comments, and I think you probably read them. And it's broken down, about 2/3 of them came through our QR code, so people did it online. About 1/3 came either they hand delivered them or by mail. So using both things, I think we got we had a much better response than we ever would have gotten before, and it was, so we tallied them every night, and, you know, it was, the purpose of the survey was not necessarily to try to gauge support for a bond major, it's more to educate, to bring these things up. These are the things that we're looking at and doing and having people comment on. So you've seen a copy of the questionnaire, and as I mentioned last time, your graphic artist, I thought did a terrific job putting a lot of information in a very a piece of material that people could absorb really easily, and I think the responses were a lot to do to her good work. You know, most of the people who responded were district residents. There were some that weren't district residents. You know, 92% of the people who responded live in the district, and there were some that use the facilities but live without it. All the things we asked about, there was support. You know, whether it was playgrounds and restrooms. The one area, the one place that didn't have the highest level of support was a new gymnasium. But I also think that we learned some things in the questionnaire, how to frame that better, that I'll talk to about a little bit in a minute. But it was the only one that, if you look at medium being a high urgency of doing it, or medium, it was the only one that didn't hit that magical 2/3 level. There were a significant number of people who said it was not a priority, low priority. So that's, but again, this is not a poll to determine the project. It's just to tell people what we were doing. So we learned a number of things from this. You know, there's broad level of support for all the critical projects, the completion of the new park, swimming pool, upgrades to the parks, less support for a new gymnasium, and some projects generate significant pros and cons. Schoolhouse being one that you would have guessed, but others as well. There wasn't, and I thought that was great because it was really, people had candid comments. And I thought the amount of written responses we got were really good. But just some cautions. Number one, this was not one to measure support for tax. We never mentioned tax. We never put a dollar amount out there. So even though something may hold at 70-something%, when you put a dollar sign with it, it may not be quite as high. We didn't test tax rates. So what are the next steps? First next step, I believe we need to first thank all the people, and we've done that in some ways, all the people that responded. Lots of times when you do these surveys, people say, well, you asked us our opinion, but we never got back what we told you. So the proposed, what we call it, a thank you note, is a way to do that in general terms. And so I know you've seen it in your packets. If you have any improvements on that or suggestions or modifications, I'd like to know so we can make those changes. I'd like to get that out, as Michelle said, for the next week. So that's the next step. We also have scheduled 4 community meetings on the various subject matters, which I think they're going to be terrific. And Michelle and I talked about and how to do them on various projects. We're not trying to do everything at once, but saying, okay, if you're interested in splash pads, swimming pools, this is the day to do it. If you're interested in the new park, here's the day to do it. If you're interested in programs for seniors, it could be pickleball or whatever, here's your date. And then, and I think we did the schoolhouse was the other one, knowing that would generate some interest. And so those are going on, which is part of the narrative, is that we've done everything. We've done questionnaires, we've done community meetings, we've gotten broad input. Step after that will be polling. And in polling, really designed to see, okay, what is people's comfort level when you throw out tax rates? Are the projects still supported when you put dollar amount on them, or the dollar amount for the whole thing? Timing of that is we want to begin polling 28th of September. to be completed by your October 28th meeting. So you will get preliminary, we won't have crosstabs, we won't have detailed stuff because it's a tight time frame. We want to have that completed by your board meeting in October. Okay, yes.
Are you talking about polling before the public meetings?
Yes.
Or
During,
Oh,
yeah.
They
okay,
overlap.
they were like, all right,
Yeah.
just.
Oh,
Yeah, if you
yes, I
did-
didn't catch that.
Yeah, if we didn't, we'd run into
Right,
holidays.
yeah.
And so it's, so there may be questions that come up at the community meeting. Well, I got a call from about polling. What are you doing? And so the answer to that, we're doing a lot of things. We sent a questionnaire to the community. We're polling. We're having these community meetings. It's all designed to have broad community input so that when we put something on the ballot, if we do put something on the ballot, we've gotten a lot of community support. So that's really the schedule. Those are the next steps. And we also want to continue to recruit volunteers and supporters in doing this. I didn't mention that we also had a small group of volunteers calling people when the questionnaires went out. They made about 500 telephone calls. It was our first attempt to kind of get some seniors and others to do it. I would have liked to have been more robust, but it was the first time we did it. But with 500 phone calls, well, a lot of people would answer their phones. They were thrilled to get a call. They were thrilled to figure out to do the questionnaire, or maybe had and then sent it in. But the reaction of the people who called, the people who were called, was very positive. So that was another thing that we did. So that's where we are. So first, if you have any sort of questions or improvements, criticisms on the next mailer that we want to send out, it's a good time to hear.
Okay, Michelle, should we take public comment before we do
Yep.
that?
I'm gonna take a little comment.
Why don't we open for public comment? At this point, any members of the public present who'd like to address us on this subject?
Nope.
Seeing none. Susie, any emails?
No
Michelle?
emails
Raised hands?
No raised hands.
Okay, we'll close public comment and now we'll have a robust discussion with Larry about what he's just presented and anything else having to do with this particular subject. Anyone can start. And we'll come back to you too. I mean, it's not like you speak once and never ever hold your peace. So we're going to have a full discussion. Well, I'll start off then. Larry, it seemed to me that in reading the comments, we sort of scratched a scab a bit. There were a lot, it seemed to me that there were a lot of people that made negative comments about things that we're doing or not doing.
Mhm,
It struck me that really needs a lot of education
mhm.
for people to understand, why things are in the condition that they're in. Why is Winslow, a lot of people complain about Winslow and, without understanding that it isn't because we're just careless in our maintenance, but,
Right.
anyway, that was a kind of an example. So I kind of got the sense that, people are a little grumpy. So the results of, more than 67% was encouraging to see overall. Another observation I would have about this postcard is that your first quote refers sort of negatively to sports fields. And the comments that I was reading seemed to be kind of heavy on, we shouldn't put more ball fields near the library. So I'm wondering if that's the best quote to use, that first quote that we've got there.
Fine. And easy to change quotes. We have a million of them.
And there were some very, very
Yeah,
good
we
ones
have,
in that
but
regard.
I did not want them all to be positive. I felt like,
Yeah.
I felt if we did that, it's kind of like cooking the results, because there were negative comments, there was controversial comments. And so I didn't want to shy away from that, because I felt just for transparency, I didn't want people to believe this was a con job. This was just trying to push our agenda, and there was controversy. But the reality is, I mean, when you end up doing whatever you're going to do with that park, a lot of the concerns that people have of having to just be open space is not going to be possible. I mean, so let me look for other quotes there. I hear that. I had the same concerns when I was trying to pull these out, but I did that because I wanted to be balanced.
I like that. It's a good response.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll relook at that.
I actually didn't have a problem with that. For that very
That
reason,
very
right?
reason,
It was
yeah.
kind of, because the difficult thing with this is that this isn't a scientific, survey. This is we were educating and we were receiving, it was an opportunity for people to, so I think to be as real as we can and, providing, here's what we got. And also it elicits a response from folks that read this, like,
Yeah, well, I liked how the schoolhouse was framed, and that, it's generated a lot of
A
mixed
lot of
opinions.
comments. I like
Yeah.
that
so,
survey highlight, yeah.
I just feel we couldn't avoid that.
mhm.
Con job is probably way too strong to say it, but it really, we're not in campaign yet. We're not trying to sell anything. We did a survey and people were pretty candid. And you don't want to ignore those people who had those feelings.
On the titles of the sessions,
Yeah,
and one of the things, well, on a lot of the comments, you read things and I think, well, did they not read this? Because there were comments made that were just flat out, they didn't read the materials or they don't understand.
all right.
So, but in these session titles, I can see, I think they're fine for those categories, but it looks like we've got the new park, which is obviously a standalone thing here in the
Right.
library. We've got the senior facilities, pickleball, and other activities. To me, that's kind of the catch-all.
It is.
Broad.
Yeah, that's the catch-all one, because the other 3 and 4 are very specific to the pool, splash pad, and then the schoolhouse.
You're very astute, that's exactly.
Well, okay, so, I don't know I know some of the comments were, well, I don't see this, or I don't see that. I know there was some questions, I don't see, what about other activities that aren't on the list? Well, we have other, and that was meant.
So what specific things would you be?
Well, no, I'm just thinking about how to phrase that, other activities. Or if there's some other thing that before the listening sessions, we may have more than 4.
Yeah, this is just the start.
So I think,
The highest thing, this is literally just the start.
I think
So,
that needs to be on there someplace, that this is just the beginning, that we're still gathering information, and that, we most likely will be
So
having.
in-person listening series instead of sessions.
No, I'm not worried about that. It's just that there's all these different things that could be added that fall under the other activities.
Yeah, and I'll tell you why the senior there. When you look at your voter database,
Mhm.
it skews towards seniors.
Yeah,
Oh, I think it's important to have that.
And so,
That's-
but I also think the idea, without committing Michelle to 20 more meetings.
Right.
You didn't kick me under the table, but I
Yeah.
felt it. But saying more sessions on other plans
Or more information or more,
been coming, yeah, or if you
Yeah.
have ideas for other sessions, let us know.
correct.
I think that would make sense to work that in, so they don't feel like this is just those.
To think, this is it. They've already figured it's gonna be this,
Right.
and this. And so,
And to be honest with you, I wouldn't have put schoolhouse possibilities
right,
had I not gotten so much on both sides of that. There's got to be a discussion about that.
Mhm.
You may choose not to put any of your bond money in that, or you may choose to. But I also don't think that we need it, I think if we have a very specific plan for the schoolhouse before the election, it's a mistake.
But this is an opportunity to educate.
yes.
This is an
Yeah,
opportunity.
All of these are opportunities to educate.
Right.
So let's say for the new park next to the library, we have some constraints there, right?
Mhm.
We have it's a flood basin, we have, and people just don't see that. They see a blank piece of land. So all of these are going to be an opportunity for me to educate the people who are in the room on a number of things, and then also receive input and have a dialogue. And so, and so that's what these are about.
That's essential, I think. That's what left out at me in the narratives that I was reading.
Yeah.
And, we may at some point in time have
But
some money
people-
set aside
People
for
are
it.
just making observations based on what they see,
Right.
rather than understanding
Yeah.
what's going on.
And that's where all of this is designed. I mean, first we have all of these needs. But I want to go back to the schoolhouse. You may at some point, we may have enough money, we may have money in there for something at the schoolhouse. But you may not make a decision yet on whether you're gonna tear it down, whether you're gonna renovate it or whatever. That decision should probably be made after the bond is passed. We'll see. We're gonna pull that information. So we're gonna have a lot more data to be able to make important decisions, but that's just my instincts right now. So that decision is better left for the future as opposed, because it has the potential of being a lightning rod for the bond nation. So anyway,
Then should it, instead of these sessions being so specific, maybe broaden it out a little bit more, because I can see some groupings, so like facilities in general. So it's sort of interesting that the schoolhouse possibilities is being presented at the Winslow Center, which is one of the other places that.
That was pretty clever.
It's clever, so, but it's also, there were quite a number of comments as well on the Winslow Center, not as much as the school, but there's still comments on that as well too. And senior facilities sort of being lumped into that, could it be possible that we just maybe broaden the topic as to?
I don't wanna, I think it would be very difficult if it's all the topics, if you're dealing with swimming pool, you're dealing with this, so.
Not necessarily all the topics, but you just said, we shouldn't be committing to the schoolhouse, and yet we have an entire session on the schoolhouse. So what's going to be brought up about the schoolhouse at the schoolhouse session? Basically, are you going to tear it down, or are you going to, that's what's going to be brought up, right? But if you broaden it to be more general, then you don't get stuck in that conversation.
So how would you do that?
Well, I mean, for example, we have two facilities right there, Winslow and Schoolhouse, that deserve our attention. They've come up in lots of conversations, but to focus on a schoolhouse in just one session.
So maybe we make Winslow Center part of the headline there, schoolhouse, Winslow Center possibilities.
Yeah.
So there's.
Or just say schoolhouse Winslow Center without the word possibilities.
Yeah, because then if you
Yeah.
you sort of invite
Just gonna have
like
some
suggestions,
invite,
right?
And so then people,
Okay.
we're gonna talk about both of those things. They're both albatrosses that need to
Right.
be dealt with. And we'll educate on both of those things at the same
Got
time.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, it's a great
and
suggestion.
then we'll just take the word possibilities out and that's just the topic.
Just one more sort of
And it's just educational.
Just educational.
Just we're giving people all the background we need.
Yeah.
just I certainly maybe it wasn't a huge number of people on the surveys, but there was at least a few comments on. A lot of our focus tends to be on active activities, sports and other such things, and there were some comments on where are the passive component, trails, walking things, open space. So it seems like all of our sessions are focused on that component of it. I was just sort of wondering if there's a space or a place for having that kind of conversation, or are we just saying it's other and then sort of stick it in there somewhere?
Well, maybe in session one, it's talking about, the possibilities for the empty parcel and other open space provisions. Maybe that's where, again, we can broaden the topic to discuss what do we do with the open space and potentially other parcels that the district owns.
I have an observation there, which is that trails in this city are misunderstood to be part of Park District, and they're not. They're not.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And so it's also, I don't think, a major fiscal focus for us to plan on using bond money to put trails into more trails into Paso Miguel, for example. Not quite sure that wouldn't lead to some confusion.
I think the point of sort of ignoring or bypassing the thought in and around passive uses of parks is what I wanted to bring up, and whether that includes trails or not trails, but just sort of spaces for people part of my presentation when we brought back from the conference was there's a certain positive aspect just for having green space in general. And that's one of the things we're trying to promote is to have that green space and then sort of this focus on all active uses. You know, those are the exciting things that might drive maybe voter turnout but I don't want to necessarily forget that other people use the parks as well too. So
That may be a nice session. You know, how to improve green space and passive places. I mean, that'll generate a certain interest. So let me play with these. I'm interested in more ideas as well. If we can improve that, but let me make sure I have it. First, first quote, we'll want to take a look at. Maybe there's a better quote. The others I think are fine. I think the general, she packed a lot into something here. I mean, there's a lot of words here, but I think she did it in a really nice way and really approachable.
They were all your words.
Well, but
Yeah.
she made them so people would actually look
Yeah.
at them and doing the graphics and stuff. Let me play with the sessions. Michelle, I should talk to you perhaps about
I think
maybe a fifth session, which could be fine. They'll have an ability to RSVP for that, but they don't have to, they can just show up.
they can show up, but it's
Um,
just for kind of planning purposes on how many people might be there, but I'm not asking for names or anything, it's just you tell me if you're gonna come.
so. Quote. Changing the one at Schoolhouse Winslow Center, because without possibility we do that. Maybe a fifth session on improving green space and open space within the
So
district.
passive uses,
Passive uses, and knowing that there will be other opportunities and such for input.
I have a question about the distribution too, because it mentioned like it's going out to the residents who provided that, you know,
Going to
information.
everybody.
It's okay. I just want.
no, it's going to 11,000, it's going to, yeah, so it's gonna be mailed to
good.
11,000. We will do additional marketing of those in our traditional channels.
Oh, okay.
So yes, but it's gonna go to the 11,000
Specifically to-
specifically,
Okay,
yes.
gotcha.
Yeah.
And then we will do additional marketing and send additional information, especially to those that have given us email addresses.
Okay.
We will include them in e-newsletters and on Facebook and all of those places.
All right, because the other maybe some people who then.
Yeah,
Not
the
necessarily-
senior one is going, the senior one is already going into the sounds, the senior sounds. That one's going out to them specifically, so that's being included, so we'll do them in addition to that, but
So Michelle, I'll make changes tomorrow. And then we'll get Jennifer to do a new draft of this.
yeah, we'll take that.
Good suggestion.
All right, anything else for Larry? All right.
Don't miss the meeting on the 26th of October.
Well, I guess we'll be invited to participate. I'd like to.
Yeah, so if you have one you want to go to, I can't have any more than 2 board members at any of these, because all of these things will eventually, it's a Brown Act issue, and since all these things will eventually come to you, and so I would like, just for appearance sake, and for, I mean, even though we might, letter of the law might be able to get away with it, I would feel much more comfortable with only having 2 board members at any of these sessions. So if there's ones that you are like to go to, tell me. One board member coming and you'd like to go to multiple ones, and you know, and other, but yes, so.
So, Derek, when you use the word participate, did you mean
Yeah.
actively participate as a board member? Is
Yeah,
that
I
what
think
you
it
meant?
would be important for us to be present as, you know, board
Present
members,
and
but.
participate, so.
But then I
would
know
you-
as a resident, we have the opportunity to participate as just a, you know, resident of Pleasant Hill. But yeah, I anticipated kind of trying to attend all sessions. You know, but I don't know.
Let me double check with, I can get a firm read from OSA on what that would be. I know you would think you could participate as a resident, but you actually can't.
Right,
You know, because any of these things that are gonna come before you need to be in a publicly noticed meeting, and so you need to be very careful about responding to any comments and or making any of your own opinions, you know, known. Like, you know, sitting in the back of the room and listening is entirely one thing, but nodding and, you know, and making, there's lots of things. I just want to keep us all out of Brown Act jail. So, but yeah, so, you know, so that's why it just gets tricky. You know, so, I mean, I would like a board member. And so I first would ask the chair to come do a, you know, on any of the meetings she could, and then the vice chair to do a welcome and that sort of thing. And, you know, but yeah, but I can get some further direction from OSA on, you know.
I
kind of
appreciate it. I think we're all very interested in
Call
being
my
present to hear.
Yeah.
Might be easy for I'm out of town for the 2, 3, and 4.
But if we could be little mice in the back of the room,
Exactly.
you know, that's
Yeah,
really what
which,
I had in
you know,
mind.
yeah, yeah, like, and, you know, which, you know, with, yeah, so.
Ultimately, are the sessions planned to be recorded?
I wasn't, but I can,
Okay.
so let me think about that,
Okay.
because I may, you know, I don't necessarily want.
People to feel weird if they're.
Correct,
being-
yeah, being recorded, so, you know, we'll take good notes.
Okay.
And, you know, share, and I would definitely like all of you to have a chance to at least be at one of them, but let me find out, I will follow up with those on, so.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Larry, thank you very much for coming in
It's
this
always a
evening and
pleasure to
joining
come here.
us.
It really is. I
Yeah.
love it.
I look forward to hearing further.
And again, I always say this, but you've got a great staff and they've been just fantastic to work with. So,
Absolutely.
all right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Larry.
All right, move on to item number 5, and we get out of this. Sometimes it pops funny.
Well, you skipped over 4.2.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. And of course, it just.
On the report from the general manager.
See, what's in the left-hand column only includes the reports. Oh, wait, there is one, okay, all right. Item 4.2 is report for the general manager, Michelle.
Yes, so I attached a written report. I have a couple of highlights. One, Tinkers and Thinkers is a Saturday from 12 to 3 here at the park at the senior center. Thanks to Jen, you all have your own Tinkers box with your t-shirt in it. It's a fancy wrapping. There's no there's no parts in there. And staff and volunteers are working to put boxes together like usual. Patrick has some extremely exciting, fun activities that are requiring him to use their new laser cutter. And so he's cutting out laser pieces, so laser cut pieces, die cut pieces that'll be going in each box. So don't be surprised if you roll up at about 11:30 and staff's still putting boxes together. But anyway, so very exciting, super happy with that. And so the other thing I wanted to highlight, which I thought was super cool, especially since we're talking about our DEIB strategic plan this evening, and just kind of a highlight that, you know, especially in our childcare, you know, where you know, preschool and childcare and in school age children and teens, you know, our staff has been doing inclusive type curriculum for many years, right? You know, they're, you know, trying to expose all of the kids to different holidays and different traditions. And I thought this was super neat this year that the preschool staff has recognized that they have a lot of families that are from different cultures and speak different languages. And so they're putting together a booklet that talks about the, you know, the languages that are spoken by the families. And so that not only can there be recognition of all of the different cultures and languages that are spoken by families in our preschool, but also that the staff can learn some of the basic languages. And so, you know, they're responsible for teaching, you know, they have kids as young as 1.5 for learning language, right? So I think it's great that they're doing that, and they took that initiative on themselves. And you know, and so it just kind of shows some of the things that have filtered down through our DEI efforts, specifically over the last couple of years. And so I wanted to give a huge shout out, thank Nicole and her staff, preschool, for that. So please let them know that we're super excited about that. And so, and then the other thing is that our College Park High School has appointed an ex officio, so we will have ex officio members starting in October. So, so that will be super fun. But with that, I'll take any questions.
Questions from Michelle?
I just have one, I read through about the tree that was removed from the Brookwood Park Creek and, I remember the resident who had come and asked about, the access being granted. Was there any follow-up on that or?
We are still working through all of
Okay.
that, so.
I just wanted to check that, yeah.
Yeah, no, we're still working through plans and all that, so.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions or comments from Michelle? Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you all staff for everything that contributed to Michelle's wonderful report. Thank you. All right, that does conclude item 4. We'll move on to item 5, the consent calendar. 5.1 is to approve bills to be paid, and 5.2, the minutes of July 13th, and 5.3, the minutes of July 27th. Any questions, comments on any of those? I have one question about the minutes of July 27th. At the very end, in my comments, it mentioned that I'd said that people, when I approached people about the survey, they were surprised to learn that the pool was, I think the number 50 is in the.
Oh, instead of 70?
57,
Okay.
yes. There's also a reference to Chris and another staff member, maybe Tom, I don't know, but it seemed to me like their last names ought to be
Okay.
included in that as
Oh,
well.
last names.
Yes. Any other questions, comments?
I just have one question. What is the building's IoT and IT support? I just wasn't too familiar with.
Oh, so they are our contractor for our IT support.
Oh, okay.
So we contract out our IT.
Okay. Just curious.
Any others? No? Okay, I'll call for motion.
Move approval of the consent calendar. Sorry.
No, go ahead. You finish.
Okay, Bobby's moved to approve the consent calendar with the changes to the
Yes.
the minutes. And second by Vice Chair Benson. All in favor?
Aye.
5-0, Susie. Thank you. Item number 6 are action items. Number 6.1 to adopt resolution 2023-09-14 declaring September 15th to October 15th as National Hispanic Heritage Month. Michelle?
Great. Yes, so as the board is aware, as part of our ongoing DEIB efforts, the board has been attempting to recognize different months and or significant milestones of people of different culture. We've done AIP month, we've done Pride month, and so we've done a number of different resolutions. And so tonight, we didn't do this last year, but I'm recommending that we recognize and declare September 15th through October 15th as National Hispanic Heritage Month. And so, we, through our process of, kind of working with staff, we have a large number of not only district residents, but also staff members who are members of this community. And so with that, I recommend that the board adopt the resolution as presented in the packet.
Any questions of Michelle? Any public comment on this from members of the public present? Susie, any emails? Michelle? Raised hands.
Oh,
Okay. Let me call for motion. Thank you, Vice Chair Vincent. Is moved. Any second?
Second.
Thank you, Secretary Tran. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. 5-0, Susie. Thank you. 6.2 is to review and input regarding the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging strategic plan. We do have our consultant here this evening, and Michelle, we'll start with you.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair Bonato. Welcome, Melanie Graham. And so I'm excited tonight to have Melanie walk through the draft strategic plan. Like I kind of mentioned before the meeting started, I printed out the PowerPoint presentation for you. So as she kind of goes through that, I thought it was easier than trying to project it. So you all have a copy of that. I'm going to also share it on Zoom here in a minute. So tonight, I've asked Melanie to kind of walk through the draft strategic plan in a broad overview of, kind of the goals, talk a little bit about, kind of what some of the action plans might be. And then tonight is your opportunity to provide input, ask questions about anything in the plan, something that you might think is missing or on any of that. And so then Melanie and I will then take those comments. We will finalize the plan and we'll come back with the plan and Melanie's full report at your next meeting for adoption. And so yeah, so that is the plan for tonight, just so that you know. So it's your opportunity to provide all that and ask questions about the plan. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Melanie.
Thank you. Good evening. Hello, everybody. So I'm going to walk you through the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging 3-year strategic plan. For the interested time, it'll be like high level approach, but descriptive enough so you have a clear understanding of essentially what was designed. I'm going to discuss the templates, which includes strategic priorities and also the goals. After that, I'll briefly talk about the DEI committee and where that's at, as the restructure was also part of the scope, and then end with the major accomplishments. So to start off, so we have a kind of an understanding of the layout of the actual plan. I'm going to talk about the structure. So essentially, it consists of, and what you see in the photo is just like a snapshot of what's before you. It consists of goals, objectives, action steps, performance measures, timelines, and staff responsible. And so with the staff responsible, it'll always be a position rather than a person's name. Time frame is essentially when the goal needs to be accomplished. And the performance measure assesses the effectiveness of the goal. It essentially creates a metric. So you can determine the progression and the accomplishments of the goals within the plan over the course of 3 years. Some of the performance measures measure the actual process or input, whereas others might measure the actual outcome. The action steps outline steps to meet the actual objective, as the objectives outline different types of activities to meet the goal. So in order to measure the impact of the plan, a baseline assessment survey would be conducted either right before implementation or in the beginning stages of implementation. So you can then measure it against itself. It's obviously the same assessment 3 years down the road. So you're able to see where you grew, and where you may have stayed the same or maybe even declined. But likelihood is the accomplishments that you've grown over that 3-year time period. So now that you have context of what you have before you, I'll just kind of jump into it. So the strategic priorities, and these aren't in any in particular order, but I'll go over them. One is create organizational structures that institutionalize diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. 2, enhance staff engagement and inclusion through effective internal communication strategies. 3 is build and sustain diverse, equitable, and inclusive human resource practices. 4 is create an organizational culture of ongoing learning and cultural humility. And lastly, create an environment where participants feel a sense of belonging. So what I'll do is when I continue to move on and I address each strategic priority, I'll read a couple of the goals that came with it. So just to bring you up to speed and recap a little bit is the goals. Well, actually, I want to describe how the strategic priorities were established. You may remember the last time I presented, we had just gotten them, so that was an exciting time because the strategic priorities really demonstrate the primary focus of what came out of the qualitative data. So there were 5, in addition to the strategic priorities, with the goals, objectives, and action steps. Those were determined in part by the writing groups that I had discussed earlier. So there were 5 different writing groups. Each writing group represented a strategic priority. And the writing group was tasked to share what they thought would be good goals and objectives and action plans that would essentially enhance this entire strategic plan. I do that intentionally so folks have buy-in to the process, and so they can see this plan and then see the ideas that they have represented. And also because they're here every day and they work and they know more likely what is where the capacity is to actually implement some of this stuff. So it was very helpful to have the writing groups participate. So I'm gonna jump into like the first strategic priority. This strategic priority, the first one, it refers to the structure of the organization. I really describe the structure of the organization as like the DNA of the organization. So, essentially it has pillars that really carry the most weight to shift the organizational culture. And so the goals that came with that were revise the overall budget to include funding for the DEI strategic plan, restructure the DEI committee in order to further enhance its impact and effectiveness among staff, update the employee handbook with policies rooted in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and prevent compensation disparities around language proficiency among employees. So, and also just to mention, in the actual plan that you have before you, there may be a couple of more goals, but I just for the interest of time, I wasn't gonna read the whole thing out. But you have most of them in front of you. Well, we have all of them actually in front of you, but I'll be reading most of them. For the second,
Are we gonna come back to these later on?
Well, if you want to take input now, then that's fine.
Sure.
Mhm.
Well,
Certainly.
I don't want to jump out of, kind of order here, but I do have a question about the last goal. Prevent compensation disparities around language proficiency among employees. Was that something that came out of the writing group, that people felt there were disparities in what people were paid?
that didn't come out of the writing group, no.
Okay, is that something that,
It's not disparities in disparities as you're thinking of it, Chair Bernardo. It really comes out of having a pay differential for those who are bilingual and are using their language skills to assist the district. And so right now we don't have that.
it says
And so-
the goal is to prevent
Yeah.
compensation
Yeah,
disparities?
and I think that may need to,
I can reword that. those,
may need to be reworded. So yeah,
Um,
Yeah.
Okay.
but that's what
So
the goal is. Yeah.
to-
The goal is to reward those who, is to reward those with additional compensation for language proficiency. So, yeah, and so, we'll definitely,
Yeah, I can reword that.
That's how I interpreted it when I
Yeah.
read through it, was
Yeah.
sort of incentivized to, be,
Yeah.
multilingual.
Okay, thank you.
I mean,
Bobby?
Oh, do you?
No, go ahead.
A couple questions, and I don't want to mess up the.
no, that's fine. This is, we weren't sure how you would want to go through it, so,
Yeah.
but I think stopping with each priority to ask questions would be great, so.
On
yeah.
the staff responsible, I understood all of them except for leadership.
Oh, so leadership is, it's a group of employees that are what would be considered mid-management. So it's our coordinators, supervisors, and superintendents. So
That makes, I just want to make sure that because there's a lot in here. I don't know,
Yeah.
if everything's defined clearly
Yes.
as to what, and then kind of leading to that on objective. Measure progress the organization is making towards becoming more diverse, equitable, and inclusive. Talks about design a comprehensive survey informed by the DEI strategic plan, establish a baseline measurement. That seems pretty complex. I just want to make sure, is that something that we think that we could do internally, or is that something we're gonna need?
well, I think we're gonna, after we do this, we're gonna talk about some additional support for implementation. So, yeah.
Because that of these, that was one that, most of these I felt that could be done
Yeah.
internally with the groups, that was one that I.
Yes,
felt-
and we are going to come back and request some additional support.
What page is that?
That was on
Where's the second
page 4 of 18. It's the,
Four?
yeah, the second.
It's not on it's right here.
Oh, yeah.
Design a comprehensive survey? Is that the
Yeah.
one? Yeah.
Well, one of the things I thought too, like kind of globally of what you had said with responsibilities was, accountability, I think it's one thing to have somebody who's responsible, but then, who might be accountable to try and, make sure that that's actually being implemented. I think by default, that sort of falls.
Yeah, that falls to me overall, so so that falls to me overall, but there's also built in here, if you get down to the nitty-gritty, there's a task force that I assign. And then that group basically is kind of overseeing and making
Make
sure
sure it
things are
gets implemented.
getting done.
Okay.
And will provide me with ongoing updates, and so
I had questions on that one.
Yeah.
Exactly. I didn't want it all fall on you, and it
Right.
does make it, like you said,
Right.
everybody's contributing, so if
Right.
you identify these are the people who are responsible, but someone outside of that who can help hold them accountable to it.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and you all are in the right mindset right now, and it seems to me as though you're thinking about like the implementation, which is natural.
I
And
think,
as,
we had a question,
Oh,
for you, or if you were going to move on.
no,
Oh, I had somewhat similar question about, I highlighted the same area. And I think it's actually an important one, although I didn't make it on this list here, the measurement of progress. And I don't know
What
if
page are
you,
you on?
this page four,
Page four.
is the thing when that body had sort of highlighted, because that measurement is going to be what we use to define success, right? And so I think a survey is part of that. So gauging perception and people's opinion on what may be occurring, I think is important. But are there other metrics that are not based on what people perceive, but actual sort of harder metrics?
Yeah.
That say, are we achieving X% or whatever, just some, are there other things that could be included that are not survey based into this measurement component?
the survey would be pretty comprehensive and it would really mirror the measurements here. So what the survey would do, and the reason why it says it's inspired by the strategic plan is because where there is reference to percentages or things like that would require the survey to tell you, to show you. I don't know if that's making sense or if I can say it another way.
Yeah, I was kind of along with Quinn
Yeah.
that, maybe it's something that the metrics are quantifiable in a way that you can, measure them over time. So
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and so with the initial survey, you need a baseline just to kind of see where the organization is at before implementation or in the beginning stages of it. And that is really important, so you have something to measure up against. The more than likelihood is over 3 years, you're going to meet a lot of these, and it's going to tell you by the performance measures that you'll meet over time. And so that's why you really want the survey to reflect what you have here. And so what I think you're asking to, and let me know if I'm wrong, is that you're thinking that maybe there could be other things that could be measured that maybe aren't here, but could be informative. Am I wrong?
Yeah, it's something that like, I don't know, just sort of the top of my head type of thing, like, our hiring practices reflective of the community that we serve, like, do we reflect it? So that might be a hard metric, it's something that we can just, that's not survey based. So I was just sort of wondering, and maybe, I'm just sort of throwing stuff out, but are there, more hard metrics that we can use to measure our success that are just not survey based? And so, survey based is an important component of it. And I think that's important to gauge people's perception, because that's an important component
qualitative
of it.
and quantitative.
We need both, right? You need both a qualitative and a quantitative component of this. And so I just want to make sure we don't miss a more quantitative component and focus just more on the quality. And I think this happens several places in this strategic priority, that we focus on survey components of it, which is very qualitative. And I just want to make sure that we have at least a few components that are more numbers based, more quantitative.
Well, with the baseline, you'll be able to have more quantitative information because it's measured here in the performance measures. And I think if you look throughout the document there, it'll become even more apparent to you. And I was very intentional to ensure that, there's metrics that you can see and would be very clear to demonstrate the progress.
So if, for example, we currently no reports of the public engaging in hate speech toward any of our employees. But after we implement this and everybody knows that there's a pathway to reporting those kinds of things, we would have a quantitative idea of whether that's happening. Is that?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
Something
it's
like that?
we have 5% hate speech, and then we implemented some policies in which we're trying to implement, now we have
No.
2% or whatever.
I think the measurement might not be in regards to the hate speech, but folks reporting it, whereas
Mhm.
before they
The
didn't.
communication of the pathway to
Yeah,
report it.
yeah, and so
Okay.
that's why some of it's based on outcome and some of it's based on the process, and so that would be the process part of it. Because it hasn't been. Even exercising yeah, which.
Expand on what Derek said in terms of the staff responsible. As I was reading through this, it sort of felt heavy on the leadership side. So general manager, leadership, BI committee, HR. So it was heavy on those components, and I was hoping that it would be more of a all of the organization approach rather than sort of a top down. Yeah, more of a cultural change.
Mhm.
So the responsible parties could be spread out a little bit more, or at least I was hoping that it could be more of the organization involved in crafting some of these solutions. But it seems that there's sort of responsible party can be more on the upper end.
Well, that's the person that's supposed to make it happen. And so, or the group that's supposed to make it happen. So like, for example, the leadership committee, right? So the leadership committee is all of our key, key staff in every single one of our departments. So they're here year round, they implement programs. And so it's not, when you say leadership, it's not just the upper management, right? It's not just superintendents, it goes all the way down to our coordinator level, right? So that's our kind of largest group of employees. So, and then, you saw there's a whole bunch of leadership committee, right? So they're all going to take pieces of that. And then they're gonna get their own committee to help implement that,
Well, I just wanted to be sure that it's sort of spread the love around a
right,
little
and
bit.
that's, and that is what it is, but I needed some group to be responsible ultimately. And then, in the implementation, that kind of falls to me to kind of talk about with them how they're gonna do that. And so my vision in talking to Melanie is, hey, you know what, the leadership committee is responsible for all these. Okay, well, now we're gonna have committees in the leadership committee, and they're gonna pull in some of their staff. And the same thing's gonna be in the DEI committee. So our goal, and my goal has always been that it be infiltrated throughout the organization. And so, we have some challenges in that, a large percentage of our staff are part-time. They're not here on an ongoing basis. A lot of them have other jobs and other things going on. So, so we're trying to, to do that with as many. Yeah, trying to facilitate that a little.
And that's why I think as we go through this, I mean, that was, a lot of it was pretty self-explanatory to me. This one was a key one because this was the measurement.
Yeah.
Like, this was like a.
Yes. But to answer your question, Bobby, we're gonna need a little bit of assistance on that. So.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
I mean, that even goes through some of these too, is you're gonna need outside
Yeah.
assistance on a lot of these.
Well, we can certainly circle back to the impact on
And then-
staff and all of that. So, Derek, do you have?
Oh, just a small little final comment, if you will. I appreciate though too in the plan that, you took some consideration to sort of incentivize people to participate, because it's like, I understand people have their day job and they got everything else going on to do. And then they got to find time to, participate in this initiative. But, by incentivizing it, they're like, oh, okay, I can get some benefit from, being, involved in, pushing this initiative forward. So.
And what?
Well, through the training opportunities, perhaps, for languages and things like that, that they could, see that in their compensation. So,
That was the only place that I saw that there was
That's why it's small.
any fiscal benefit.
Yeah.
But I think those kind of thoughts are important, to recognize that, this is, part of what staff are doing, and it's, a little bit above and beyond, what their normal job responsibility might entail.
I think it opens opportunities, and we already do this for training and for involvement, for demonstrate leadership by participating in these kinds of things. So that in itself, could be an encouragement to someone who's motivated to move up in the ranks here.
Yes, and we're, you know, and one of the things that this is gonna do is gonna create a lot more of those pathways, right? You know, of opportunity. It's already created pathways. We have, you know, the DEI committee is, you know, as Melanie said, one of them is, you know, one of the reasons, you know, we brought a consultant in was to help with the strategic plan and as well as to look at the structure of the DEI committee and how that functioned and how we added people and all of that. And, you know, through the work that we've done since April, we have a couple of people who have stepped up and said, hey, I want to be on the DEI committee. And, you know, and that's, you know, and so we're providing more pathways for more leadership outside of people's regular duties. And so, you know, and so that is what we're doing as we kind of move forward with that. But we will not put leadership committee there because I think that is maybe a little bit more descriptive. So
And staff responsible.
yeah.
I just wanted to add that the leadership committee is 20 employees, so it's a lot, it's a big committee,
A
it's
big pool to choose from.
it's a lot, we're a big group and we're essentially anyone of our staff who supervises somebody or supervises volunteers. So we are a big group and to be able to have subcommittees is not gonna be.
So it's already pretty broad then.
Yeah.
We're a broad group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to what you're saying earlier about the accountability. As Michelle was saying, it's meant to, those are the folks accountable to ensure that these are being accomplished. So, okay, I can go ahead and.
Sure.
So, the next strategic priority number 2, enhance staffing engagement and inclusion through effective internal communication strategies. This strategic priority was one of the more popular and frequent topics that came up in the data collection. Although, you know, this strategic priority has the least goals, they are pretty large goals that do carry quite a bit of weight. The goals being diversify and streamline internal communication methods, empower part-time, seasonal and non-traditional staff to feel a sense of belonging through effective communication and engagement that promotes inclusion. So we're thinking one of the activities clearly would be an intranet, really with part-time and non-traditional staff at heart to really ensure, and what's coming out of the data a lot, which is those folks just not feeling included or just having accessibility to the basic things that maybe other full-time staff have. So they were definitely in heart when thinking and unpacking and designing this part of the strategic priorities.
I do have a question there about computer access. So Michelle, not every one of our full-time staff has access to a computer, nor does their job responsibility really call for it. So
Yeah, so this one, this is the one that's kind of that we're going to be looking at, which is why we've included the intranet. And so almost everybody has access to a computer because we use online timesheets now. So everyone has access to a computer. What we don't have is, you know, the 365 is now subscription based. And so we have to pay a per month fee for every user we have, right? So whether or not this is going to be cost effective, which is why it says it has cost effective strategies. And so we may get to the spirit of this doing something else, you know, than specifically using Microsoft Teams. But this is but the goal is to be able to effectively communicate with everybody, because right now some of our employees who don't sit at a desk and, you know, don't have a need for a computer, you know, they're relying on their supervisor to provide them information, right? So we want to be able to have an information source and a computer available for people to go get information. And so that is the goal. Right?
so if we adopt this without that caveat that you just provided, is that the wrong thing for us to do? I mean, if we're adopting this, are we saying go forth and do this, Michelle?
No, I mean, you are saying that this is what we're going to strive for. You know, yeah. And so, but you know, I mean, it's a strategic plan. We're going to strive to do all of these things. You know, we're not. You know, some of them might not be feasible, and so you know, but I hear you on the Microsoft Teams. We might just soften that a little bit and not use a specific product. So
When I write these many times, especially for government, so I always have budget in mind. So that's why some of the language is like cost effective or like most appropriate for the capacity,
Mhm.
which considers what is realistic to actually implement. So hearing feedback now is really good and helpful.
Do we give even seasonal employees or lifeguards, for example, logins, or email addresses?
We don't give them email addresses currently, so we don't have that, and so, so my conversation with Melanie was, that if I was to do that based on the subscription product that we have now, it's cost prohibitive, we couldn't do it, it would cost me $200,000 a year, and
So,
so,
for example, the teen center, we could have a dedicated
Yeah.
computer.
yeah, there's a computer, yeah.
That someone could go to, with the right training about,
Yeah.
there is something for you to look at here.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
get them onto the internet that way.
Yeah, and we have, yes, and we do have that in most of our facilities. I think, I think probably the only place there might not be easy access is that parks. And so, but like I said, everyone now has to get online, either on their phone or on a computer to clock in, unless they have a clock we have a couple of clocks at a couple places, but so and like the teen center, they have a shared email address that they all use to get on a computer. So we'll work that out, but we'll make this a little squishier.
Well, I don't know that the internet would necessarily have a cost per user. I mean, it would just be a.
No, the internet does not. So that's why I'm advocating for I'm advocating for the intranet, because basically it's a hidden web page on our regular web page, right? So that we can give everybody, a login information and they have access to it, right? And so then all the information is there. They can get on it at home, they can get on it at the office, any of that. So that's the direction I'm going in, is using the intranet.
Well, I'm pretty hip to this goal because I think even though it's a DEI initiative, it seems like it just enhance overall organizational efficiencies, to have the communication, a little bit more available, and that information also for all the employees. So.
So clearly,
that.
a key thing here is to communicate expectations and resources to people that
Mhm.
currently we're not communicating.
Right.
Yeah, that's absolutely. That's why this is one of the more popular topics, the most popular topic that came up. So although when you look at it, it doesn't have like this slew of goals, it's probably the strategic priority that requires the most behavioral change. Meaning that folks changing habits by being able to get online and access and be able to look at different pages and get familiar with the technology. And so yeah.
As well as the behavior change of, administrative staff posting things online and getting it in multiple different communication channels. So,
In different languages too.
yeah, and in different languages. And so we're already working on that. So, but we're,
So what if staff develop, what if they particularly want? Is it just sort of this static internet website type of thing? Do they want something that's more dynamic? I mean, what exactly that they want?
Initially, what they were asking for is that everybody have an email address, but because of the cost implications, that is not necessarily realistic. So the next best thing is to have an intranet where all staff have access to, and so that's essentially what was described. It's what I've seen, be effective in other organizations, and I do think it's actually a great solution if not everybody is able to have an email. That this could be the very next best thing that is.
and I think the biggest
Biggest
reason,
we're fairly small.
and I think the biggest reason people had requested an email address is because that's primarily how our communication goes out now.
Mhm.
Is we send it to all staff, and then we ask the supervisors, such as Tom, who has staff who doesn't have email addresses, to pass it on, right? So if you have somebody, Tom forgets, or whatever, so or if someone isn't at that meeting, they don't get that. So so while the request was for email addresses, really what they want is they want to be able to receive the communication and know where to get it, and that it's available. And so the reason why they asked for that is because that's how we're doing it now. So
So it's going to require change, yeah, if you said a change of practice.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Sure. Are we still on priority two?
I was just gonna move on to three.
Okay.
Thank you. And so, as you can imagine, this too is one of the more, popular and frequently brought up topic areas, which is strategic priority number 3, build and sustain diverse, equitable, and inclusive human resource practices. Some of the goals being establish diverse, equitable, and inclusive hiring practices, develop an onboarding process that enables new hires to feel and foster a sense of belonging, develop an equitable professional development program that empowers all staff, establish an effective feedback loop between employee and manager around performance, build a fully staffed human resource department, and create a workplace setting where staff can feel safe reporting concerns. So I'll pause for any questions or commentary on this strategic priority.
I guess my comment here is a concern that given the size of our organization, in terms of full-time personnel, to put a full-time human resource department together seems a lot.
Actually just referencing one FTE.
I'm sorry.
It's so when we say department, it's one person dedicated to human resources. So this is something, just to kind of give an idea, this is something I've wanted for a while since I've been here, is to shift some responsibilities. So right now, my admin services manager does HR and finance. And so and we are large enough that we really need a dedicated human resources employee. And so, because right now, the way we're doing human resources is we're reacting to things because we just don't have the capacity. And so, so we have the benefit of some retirements coming up that I'll be able to shift and change some responsibilities without adding another position. So this is something that I've wanted for a while. Yes, that's why, well, one of the reasons it's in there is because, it's something the staff's been asking for a while as well. But that's kind of the thought, so.
So it would be a part-time position.
No, it'd be a full-time position.
It would be a part-time HR position.
It would be a full-time HR position. It'd be one,
Yeah, but you said you're moving some people around.
well,
People are retiring and that you can fulfill them.
I can change a job that I have now.
HR person.
I can change a full-time job that I have now. I can change that to an HR job. So, so it's a full-time HR person without adding any FTEs, without adding any
Yeah,
people.
aren't we shorting services if we do that?
We are not. We have become much more efficient in a number of areas, and
I guess we want to see that.
yeah, no, I'm responsible for the operations of the organization. And so, we've done a lot of things on the human resources side, and particularly in payroll, that have reduced the amount of time it takes us to do a number of things. And so we have capacity in that particular position. Unfortunately or unfortunately, we've had the same person doing that position for over 30 years. So changing it into where I would like it isn't going to happen until that person retires. So.
I'm just sharing my experience with, being part of a firm with over 100 employees and really struggling to find enough for a full-time HR person.
I think we have that, but
Okay.
we do enough seasonal hiring. We do enough hiring throughout the year, Sandy. And seasonal hiring, just the onboarding process and managing mandatory trainings and new trainings and things that people want, and updating those sort of things. While we're small, we have a lot of turnover in that part-time seasonal that is takes the same amount of work to onboard, to do exit interviews, to do all of the HR components as a full-time employee, but they're only here for 12 weeks. So, so we definitely have the need.
Bobby, did you have a comment?
Just to clarify, are we talking about in this goal, is this two, so there'd be two full-time staff?
So a number of staff member, and it's in here. I'm not it's in here as a potential goal. So eventually in year 3, potentially a DEI focused, a DEI focused position as well. But I don't know, we don't know until we get there, whether we'll have the budget, whether we'll have the need. And so the first position is the priority, and then in year 3, potentially it says to evaluate that and to look at that. So potentially, have a DEI focused person as well. So that's where that is.
It makes sense to flip these two.
Yeah. That too.
No, we, for 2 reasons. One, we have a lot of HR focused needs that need to be taken care of first. And don't want, we're to get to Director Tran's point, we're going to adopt a strategic plan. And if I hire first a DEI person, the entire staff's going to go, great, that's now your responsibility.
Gotcha.
And so what I want us to make this as a culture shift. And then as we get into 3 years, it's like, okay, well, now we're going to be, looking at, some other things, maybe future focused and, and more technical, that maybe having someone on staff might make more sense. So that's why the positions are the way they are.
Well, that leads me back to, my comment that this isn't written in an aspirational way. This is written, we shall plan to be this way.
A plan, a strategic plan to get to.
I think you just on the, you'll notice a trend here, but on the performance measures for, the equitable professional development program that empowers all employees, it says by year 3, 75% of appropriate staff. How's that determined?
Of the, which one?
It says by year 3, 75% of appropriate staff will have professional development plans. I'm just curious, like what?
Because it might not, all staff might not be, like, if it's a part-time staff person or seasonal staff person, they may not be here long enough to get the professional development.
That makes sense. The one, then if you go down to the next one, I conduct 360 performance review process for all identified leaders.
Yes.
Mhm.
Is that,
So
Those are the people that I will identify.
okay.
not everybody,
Not everybody.
I just want to make sure that this thing is lined up as possible so that we can,
yeah, I write these a lot and I write them for governments a lot and the language that I use is very intentional. So when you see something like appropriate staff or identified staff, there's definite reason why. So I appreciate the opportunity to clarify it for you.
Oh, thank you. I think one thing I missed on that is if I didn't follow it all the way through. If you look at the staff responsible for that, it makes sense that HR would be on the appropriate staff,
Right.
GM would be on the. Oh, thank you.
No, good. I'm glad you're asking. These are great questions.
Well, I guess I'm trying to figure out how a lifeguard who's just on for a few months in the summertime is going to participate in all of this. Is this all through the onboarding process? And is there like a full day of?
Well, some of it's going to be onboarding, some of it's going to be, so the onboarding is, that there's a goal about, about basically kind of, creating an onboarding process, which we don't have right now. Everyone does it differently. Creating an onboarding process so everyone understands expectations, feels a sense of, belonging in the organization, does some basic, there's at least one other place where it says we're going to do a specific training for onboarding, which kind of sets the tone for DEI. So they will do that. They already do get some of that training within their training, because all lifeguards, they do onboarding training where they will train for about a week. They do every Friday. They practice skills, they do other trainings. And so there'll be trainings that will be appropriate to them. Some of these trainings might be, how to deal with, patrons who come to a facility, who may be wearing headdress or something, and so there are so many different training aspects that are going to touch everybody. We have a fairly diverse staff. We have a fairly diverse staff that uses different pronouns. And so, so my staff has been dealing with, training all staff and training their staff on on how to be respectful of people. Not only those that come to the pool, but also their coworkers. And so, so this is, there'll be different trainings for different people. And so, why it says appropriate staff, because we may not hit everybody, at least initially, we may not find an appropriate training for everybody, but everyone will get some sense of training through the onboarding process and through updates on, on what the DEI committee are doing and all those sort of things.
Can I add something?
Yes.
In a lot of ways, your question is a good one about audits and our staff being seasonal. But in a lot of ways, they're ahead of the game on some of the DEI work that we've been doing. The first thing that comes to my mind when you ask is the locker rooms. And in order to get through our pool, you have to go through a men's or a women's. And our staff has been trained, because we have people who come in, they may not look like the gender, they might not present the gender that someone might think. And so we've had to handle, and our new and young and seasonal temporaries, it's their first jobs, have been put in some situations like this. So these are trainings we've already started with them, and I see us continuing. So, thanks for what that's, yeah.
I think what's great about this plan is that it streamlines all these efforts. So it's not just done in pockets, it's streamlining it and normalizing it throughout the organization. So it's all very consistent and that everyone gets the same engagement.
With this, and kind of sitting back a little bit and hearing all of the comments, what this tells me is that it's important to have an HR person. We can figure out how that morphs if we need a specific DEI, whether it's part-time or the HR person, who knows? But with everything that's in this strategic priority, and the HR world is so different compared to what it was before. It's changed. It's definitely more specialized. There are experts out there who have all kinds of experience in what we're trying to do more efficiently and appropriately for the staff. So I think having a dedicated HR person is important for this to succeed. I think that's important for sure.
And I think that's why this was one of the most popular topic areas that came across any type of data collection, which is the need for HR, just a proper HR, comprehensive HR.
And that will result in just, I think, so many more efficiencies across the board in other areas where there's been maybe a little, this person deals with an HR issue this way, somebody else deals with it this way. There'll be more consistency, in the approach. And I think the employees will understand that and feel that everybody's on the same playing field.
And it'll also free up time for supervisors and managers who right now are doing a large portion of their own HR. And so they're doing onboarding, they're doing job announcements, like they're doing a lot of things because we just don't have enough hours in that HR department to do all of those things. And so, and this is how it's been since I've been here. And so, so by bringing that back in and centralizing that is important. And so, and it's up to me to figure out the budget. All of you. So I won't bust our budget, I promise. So
It's just world's changing, and that's one area that is very important to get it right.
Yeah.
And do anything for it.
Who do people go to now if they have to report a concern, and having a person identified who can think that isn't maybe their immediate supervisor,
well, they have that identified. We have that identified. It's just, that person is doing multiple different things. And so, and we haven't been proactive in some of these things. So we're dealing with a lot of things as they become issues. So, instead of being as proactive as I'd like to do, just because we just don't have the bandwidth. So.
Okay. So looking at strategic priorities this refers to training and learning opportunities. I identify this strategic priority as one of the organization's strengths, because the staff has such a yearning and drive to just learn more about differences and just new things, which doesn't always happen in organizations, and it's something that is so prevalent here. And coming in as a consultant, to staff that are so enthusiastic about learning new things is incredible. And so when you look at the strategic priority, create an organizational culture of ongoing learning and cultural humility. Cultural humility, it essentially describes like a commitment to like self-critique, have like self-actualization while learning about different identities, other cultures, other things. And so it also implies that it doesn't end. It's like we're always evolving, we're always learning. Whereas there's an implication that, you become competent and you've met it. Whereas that's not reality. It's always evolving. So that's just to provide more context on the language that you're seeing here. So with the goals here in the strategic priority 4 is ensure that all employees participate in mandatory foundational in-person organization-wide DEI training. Ensure current staff are provided an informational training on the updated employee handbook. Enhance leadership skills and effectiveness. Enhance department performance, expertise, a department-specific training. Enhance board understanding of DEI and bias to enhance and foster inclusive governance. So that's what you have here with 4, and I'll pause for any commentary or feedback.
Comments or questions?
Not really a question. Just looking down the road, we have to take ethics training, harassment training. This makes sense that, to your point, it's kind of an ongoing, there's things that develop regularly. So I think it's great we're getting ahead of it. I don't think it's very long before we're required as elected officials to do it, anyways.
And I think what's, awesome about this is that, a lot of the staff, want it, particularly like the DEI training. And it was their word and their request that, it be in person and engaging and personable, which I just thought was, just commendable.
I did have a question on that. Do you have an idea on like what that looks like? What like time or like time frame? Hours?
Oh, the actual training?
Yeah.
I do. There's a couple of organizations I know that do this, and their trainings, I participated in them. I co-trained 6 hours, it's like day training.
Okay.
But I'm sure, with whomever's going to provide these trainings, what I would hope that they would do is customize it to the audience here and to the capacity here, which means it could be shorter. It could be broken up into different pieces, so it's more accessible for all staff to participate. But I've seen this done in very complicated organizations, and it's worked. And you just have to really be flexible with scheduling and just offering it more than just one time, so people can actually have an opportunity to participate.
We'll be doing a variety of different things, like Melanie said, and utilizing GARE and the government foundations, training. And so, we'll develop that training plan and what that looks like, but yeah, there'll be some ongoing sort
of. The last strategic priority, strategic priority 5, create an environment where participants feel a sense of belonging. Goal being empower community members with inclusive and equitable access to the organization services, provide equitable and inclusive access to facilities and programs for all members of the community, create marketing material that authentically and respectfully represent the diversity of cultures within the organization, create a culture of respect and acceptance by normalizing the practice of sharing pronouns, and foster collaboration between participants and staff to collectively uphold the culture of respect and inclusion within all organization services. And as you can see, the objectives and actions really unpack what these goals are.
So, the first 4 strategic priorities, really are about building organizational capacity and understanding and, and getting people to, to feel some competence in, in kind of understanding what needs to happen. And strategic priority 5 is really taking those things and making sure that we're also projecting out, right? And so this is important for us to start, identifying some of those things that might be barriers to people feeling like they belong or that they should participate. And so some of these are, they're things that we can do now. Some things we are doing. We've been doing a little bit, our marketing materials, we've been intentional about that. We obviously can improve on that. But this is kind of that, taking all of the internal work and, and making sure that that we're reflecting that in the work that we do for our community, right? And so we wanted to make sure, Melanie and I had this conversation wanted to make sure that it wasn't all internally focused. It's like, okay, well, we're doing all this work, but all of the things we're doing are going to are going to trickle out into how our employees provide services to the public, because we are a service organization, right? So this is one specifically around that. So it's not comprehensive. It's but I think I've shared with this group before, with the board before, that other colleagues have done a lot of have had a strategic plan, done a lot of work in training within staff, and then as staff starts to make recommendations for policy changes or for programs, they start to think about things with an equity lens, right? They start to think about who's not in a program that is in our community and what might be preventing that, without us specifically saying, oh, we're going to make sure that this happens, right? So that is ultimately the goal, is that all of our staff are starting to create programs and services for our community that reduce those barriers and make sure that everybody is represented and feels a sense of belonging.
Yeah, that's what struck me as, like, I'm most curious about how, maybe you would implement like a waiver program, to get, through some of those barriers and opportunities for people to, participate and have it more outwardly focused. So.
Yes, you will see that, because that will be something that will have to come back here. So that is one of the goals, something that's been also on my list for a long time.
Yeah, staff were super passionate about that.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate this fifth priority, because I think I've also brought up that sort of what Michelle was saying, the internal work has to eventually be reflected externally, that's an important component of us as a service organization. I did have a question about the equity or the diversity lens that staff are trying to create with this particular priority in order to better reflect the community. Didn't seem to be a goal that brought in the community's voice in that process. That a lot of the process was lower fees, or we're gonna make sure they feel like they belong, but there's not a lot of sort of, what do you want as a community? And so I don't know if there's a way to maybe incorporate that voice.
Yeah, it was a bit intentional the way that it was written. I kind of look at it as like the airplane role, in that, the current organization, really focused on ensuring they're good and they're okay and well educated in regards to DEI, to then be able to evolve into receiving feedback from the larger community and taking that on once they've established their own capacity in this area. And so I thought doing both at one time could be maybe not setting the organization up for success or to achieve the goals that would have been embedded in that. What I foresee and what I typically suggest clients do is that the first 3 years really focus on the infrastructure and the internal culture, right? And then after the 3 years, because this is always going, it's like you're never stopping. I hate the time frame, it's misleading, right? So then after the 3 years, doing something very similar where it would focus externally, because by then the hope is that staff then have already adopted and evolved in these ways that you see here, and then it will be readily prepared to be responsive to what the community needs. And so that's the primary reason why I read it.
What I liked about this too is it seemed like there were some quick wins as
Oh,
well.
sure,
You know,
yeah,
there's some easy things that we
Totally.
can do that, you know, make that improvements.
Going back to what Director Tran said, so the goal of fostering collaboration between participants and staff to collectively uphold culture, respect, and inclusion within all of them. You know, we talk about, you know, kind of the objective is on the hate speech. Melanie, what do you think about putting an objective to intentionally reach out to the community groups or underrepresented groups in our community to start engaging in conversation?
Yeah.
Is that something that?
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. And I think that goes back to what I made previous, waiting to the very end to say, well, maybe we should have thought about digging the place individually. Yeah, I mean, now we have to make sure that we just did for the last 3 years, what it actually needs for the community to come back. What the hell are you guys doing? This is all wrong, right? So to be very intentional, to bring that voice in while you're building the plan.
Yeah.
And I think that makes it so much better by the time you get to year 3, that you have at least some idea that you're on the right track.
And so maybe, you know, the objective is to reach out to underrepresented groups, you know, while, you know, planning events and, you know, services for the community. That might be an objective, and you and I can talk a little bit more about the actions and what that might look like.
Sounds good.
I think, you know, having 2 things in that goal might be a little better,
Certainly.
Yeah. and that might address your concern.
Overall, I thought this was a lot more than what I expected and very comprehensive in general. So I don't take any of our comments as sort of criticism per se.
No,
or as ways to try to improve, you know, all the work that everybody's been doing.
I appreciate it, and I love to hear the feedback because it helps me understand how it was received, and so that only helps me. So I think this is very helpful to me.
One of the takeaways I had was, I also saw that there was some, you know, opportunities for the board involvement as well, which is one of the things we had mentioned previously, is that, you know, we've got some, you know, stake in this as well.
This is a kind of a mundane question, but with all of this draft strategic plan information, and there's a lot of it, what is and you don't have to get into the specifics, but what does the tracking piece, I'm just interested, what does a tracking piece look like that goes along with it
Yeah, so
as things start?
So that's that would be in relation to like doing the baseline assessment to kind of see where you're at. So let's say that we just did that. So you have like we now know where the organization is at in these different areas. And so you could do that every year and to really track. It could be helpful. It also could be a little difficult because there's different timeframes as to when things are to be accomplished. So if one thing is supposed to be accomplished in year 1, and then another thing at the end of or at the beginning of year 3, and you're assessing it every single year, the outcome might not be fully informed of things that are supposed to happen in the future. And so that's why I always think it's a good idea just to do it once in the beginning and then once in the end. And then also the likelihood of success is even higher because you know, there's going to be some things where the time frame you don't make it. And let's say something is, you know, supposed to be accomplished by the beginning of year 2, and it just isn't getting done. You still at least have another year to accomplishment, even though you didn't get it done in that time frame, in the desired time frame, you're getting it done within 3 years, and the outcome will reflect that. Whereas if you were to just look at it yearly, it might not take that into consideration. So I'm hoping this answered your question.
Yeah, it does part of it, and I mean, is there going to be, for each of these, is there gonna be a massive spreadsheet?
I mean, it's gonna.
Or, I mean,
It's more of a, yeah, I mean, well, it's gonna be how I set up to track it, and you know, and then there'll be regular updates, and you know, and so we'll figure that out internally, how we're going to do that.
I figured there would be.
Yeah, and then there will be regular updates, you know, staff will be updating me. The DEI committee and will be updating the board. You know, a lot of this, I mean, this is important organizationally. And so, so this, while a lot of this is staff work, I thought it was, it's very important for the board to ratify it and say, yes, we're, this is the direction we want to go in. And making sure that this is what we want for our organization. And so, but staff, we'll be figuring out the tracking. The last thing that's going to happen is we're not going to take this. I mean, we've set up with all the interviews and all the work that Melanie and staff have done. I'm not going to take this now, after the board adopts it and then sit it on a shelf in 3 years. Go, oh well, let's dust that off. There's going to be ongoing efforts in making sure that we talk about it, identify what needs to be done.
What I liked also in going through this, and I went through it a couple of times because there's so much information, you can't just read it once. Is that in several cases, things have already started. And they didn't just start today or 2 months ago. Some of them started a while back and are incorporated in this, which I think is good. So there's seeds that have already started to grow in this particular area. And this can look daunting with, strategic, the strategic plan and the goals, and they got all these things. But if you look at it and then you look at it, kind of throw it into the wider view, it does make sense. And I think as it starts to more things start to happen, then it'll just be, as people internalize it, it will be easier to explain, easier to understand. It won't be, we're gonna be getting people that have already dealt with these kinds of things potentially in other organizations. So you've got those kinds of things where as we have new people coming in, they're going to be giving us good input on how this works here and in other organizations.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely my personal style to write these so they can be accomplished. I don't ever like to, design something that is a burden or like something like staff like dread. I want it to be something that, staff get excited about and can achieve. I want it to be a friend of the organization. And so with some of the things that you'll see in here, exactly how you described, they've already been, started. I think what's important about a strategic plan is that it just streamlines it and it makes it like official, like we have to do this. We've done it before, but it might not have been like as solidified as it can be now. And then there's other parts in here where they're starting just now for the first time. And I still think it's very important that it be noted here just so it can be finished. So yeah, but my primary goal in writing these and my style is that they can be achieved and that it's not something that, induces anxiety attacks or a dismay, but something that folks can really rely on as a supportive tool.
And I know you had any last comments on the strategic plan. I know she had a couple more things about just the DEI committee thing, so. Go ahead.
With respect to the plan, and I know we're going to talk about the DEI committee here in a second. This is a spreadsheet, right? Can you sort from the last column to be able to show us what the responsibilities of any particular group will be over these 3 years? So we
I
kind of
see.
gauge what the workload is, I suppose.
Yeah, that would come with the implementation when we understand what that task force would look like. And yeah, the way that I've done it in the past, there's Asana or some project management platforms that can help you do that and have a really great visual of how things are being accomplished and who's accomplishing them. I guess short answer, that can happen as we discuss implementation with them.
Well, I think it's important to look not just at the big picture, but to look at the pieces of the big picture as well. I guess my next question is, do you stay involved here as a resource for the DEI committee? I'm reading about surveys and reports and They have to review all the marketing materials, and I mean, it just goes on and on, the sorts of things, and then, tinkering with it and looking at the policies and all of this, that's a lot. And we still have cost recovery goals, we have employee, services and goals that we have to also make sure that we're not penalizing our employees by volunteering and participating in all of this. So, kind of understanding, and I think having Michelle understand what the impact is here is a very important piece of knowing whether 3 years is right, 4 years is better, 2 years we can accomplish. Because we don't want to kill people, we also don't want to penalize them.
And
And we certainly don't want to stop services, in parks and facilities and programs to our public. Because we're diverting the attention of our employees in ways that we shouldn't. We should either be the supportive person to provide, the insight about how you write up all this stuff. Seems to me that's very important to have that resource for the DEI committee. That comes with the price tag. So we also have to, I think, look at all of that in terms of budgeting. So I just want to, sort of say that I think we as a board are very appreciative of staff's involvement in all of this, their willingness to and commitment to all of this. But I, for one, want to also express that I want to make sure that you have the resources so that you can still do your jobs and still, feel satisfaction in what you're doing, and getting the promotions you're entitled to and the compensation and all of that because you're doing your jobs, and that the public, doesn't start expressing dissatisfaction with things that are not being provided. So I just want to have that overlay. You mentioned the word burden, and I just want to make sure that we all find a way to implement this wonderful plan without overtaxing our staff, and that we as a board need to find, I think, the funds to be able to get the resources to support the efforts of staff to do all of this.
Yeah, and that is, and I appreciate that, Sandy. So yes, Melanie will be staying involved for a while, and I will be coming at our next meeting to discuss kind of what that looks like in the first part of that. But then, one of the goals is me to provide to the board what the cost of the DEI efforts are and finding some time in that. That's number one. That's number one. So, and then me making sure that, staff is adequately supported. I mean, that's my job. And so, and I request the funds from you guys to help supplement that if we need to. So
it's very foreseeable.
It is very foreseeable. So.
Yeah, and just to quickly go over some of the ones with the DEI committee, it's evolving on a daily, weekly basis. Some of these are in motion, but we've established, work groups, and it really speaks to what you were talking about. There's a communication work group and a policy work group, and those were formed because of very popular topic areas from the staff. And so having these internal work groups within the DEI committee, just to really ensure that staff's needs are met as it is related to those is why those work groups exist. Also, more members. The reason why is so it's balanced out a little bit better in that there are more line staff that have opportunities to participate. And then also, as I hope, and I've been seeing, little indicators of this staff wanting to be involved, which is great and so exciting. I get so excited every time I hear someone ask about it. And then like bylaws, I have a draft of like what the bylaws are, which, discuss, the intricacies of how it's operationalized essentially. Marketing and promotion, there's been some communication that's gone out, just, letting the larger staff know what's happening. We're under construction and this is what to look forward to. So folks can get to be a little bit more excited and ask questions and get involved if they see fit. Also, an anti-racist framework, and what that is like a theory that I introduced to the DEI committee very early on that really speaks to what it is to be an anti-racist organization versus not racist. And it actually, race is a part of it, but it's a small part of it. It's a theory, and it's something that the DEI committee and myself have talked about and really support the goals of the committee. Also, a name change. You know, there's been feedback about the name that staff have had. And so, you know, enough, it doesn't, I don't think that there needs to be very much feedback to be responsive, even if it's just one or two people that have concern. And so that's happening right now. And then just team building. I noticed, you know, there's this great committee, and it's growing, and folks having the opportunity to kind of get to know who they're sitting next to better in a different way, and really their worldview as it relates to this work. So that's some of the wins, and just some of the major accomplishments, again, with the restructure of the work group, the bylaws, you know, new members, the draft of the plan, as you see in front of you now. I've gotten the opportunity to do some department DI trainings, one with the youth staff. I have one coming up with the preschool staff, and then also with the DEI committee. I love doing that, and I hope more teams ask for it. I just enjoy engaging and bringing them along this journey. And then also the coaching, you know, I've had some, the longer I've been here, the more people are really understanding my role. And so I'm being engaged more, giving me the opportunity to provide coaching and guidance, and some of the, you know, questions and things that folks want support around have been really interesting, and it makes me really glad that I'm here. And so I have to say that the whole scope, that's probably my favorite. And then also, you know, some of the new hires, particularly some staff of color, being able to engage with them and, you know, support them in their onboarding process, and, you know, help them understand like the journey ahead in this work. And that's been great as well. So that really concludes what I have here. Very much open to questions.
I have one more question. You know, with the work groups kind of having taken ownership of these strategic priorities, do you think that they would naturally be involved in the implementation phase to be like the task force that goes ahead and starts to, you know, see that those are accomplished? Like the same group of individuals?
What I've seen, a best practice that I've seen is having a separate task force aside from the DI committee being responsible for the implementation. There's definitely intersections in this plan that include the DEI committee, and their role in it is super imperative. But what I've seen in the past is, you know, sometimes organizations that, depending how serious they are about this, midway or even in the beginning, just might dump it on the DEI committee to implement, and that's not cool, and it's not sustainable, and it's not fair, and that's where your initial concern would come in. And so to prevent that, it's, you know, the DEI committee has their lane and their goals and work groups to support some of the implementation without taking full ownership and having preventative measures from getting this whole thing kind of dumped on them. But the task force, which, and you know, the likelihood is that some folks on the DI committee might be a part of the task force, but it wouldn't be the sole responsibility of the DI committee to do that. That's a great question. I'm glad I was able to kind of clarify that.
Okay.
Any others? Melanie, thank you very much. Very comprehensive. I think it was very thought-provoking for all of us on a lot of different levels. And look forward to having us come back and having us have a very good discussion about getting this going.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Sorry to keep you so late.
No worries. It's my bedtime.
All right, okay, let's see where we're at now. 6.3, to adopt the fiscal year 2023-24 capital improvement program for 3 projects. Yeah, this is a cool discussion to have. Michelle, is it?
I have copies that are printed out in case
Oh, thank you. Because Luda.
to see a copy. So pass these around if you'd like a full copy. So just so on an annual basis, we look at our capital improvement program, which spans a number of years. And so just to kind of give a brief background, especially for those on Zoom. So the projects themselves were reviewed and made recommendations about scope, priority, and year by the Land and Facilities Committee. So the Land and Facilities Committee looked at all of the project without dollar signs, and then the the recommendations to the Budget and Finance Committee, and they looked at the dollars. And so both committees have made a recommendation to move forward with the fiscal year 24 projects. You'll see that the fiscal year 24 projects, the total amount estimated is about 1.6 is $1,652,000. Of that, $775,000 is the restroom and ADA improvements at Roger Smith Park. Of that, quite a bit of that money will be coming from Prop 68 per capita funds. But tonight, I'm requesting that the board adopts the projects for fiscal year 23-24, so fiscal year ending 24, for a total of $1,652,000. There are adequate funds in the CIP budget at this time to do that. Just to kind of give a precursor, at your next meeting, you're going to be looking at year end. Today, the Budget and Finance Committee looked at additional funds that they are going to recommend moving to that capital funds, but to replenish the capital funds. But just as just to let you know that as of right now, we have the funding in the CIP fund. With that, I'll take any questions.
Tons of questions. Start with you guys. Bobby?
Yeah, on the new, saw the new one, the shade structure, the shade at the Pleasant Oaks Park. I was confused. Is that, what is that? What are we talking about there?
So there has been, so this is specifically at the playground. So there has been a request to add shade over the playground because there is no shade at the playground. So we haven't designed it yet, but typically there are products that you can add that have shade sails, and that would provide some shade. But we would come back to the board with a proposed design.
And then what is that? So that, I mean, just is, one of my pet projects is the shade structure at the picnic area. So
Yeah.
that's like double the cost of that. So that would.
Yes, because that one's a massive structure.
Okay.
That one is a much bigger structure. So this one is definitely doesn't include the structure that the one at the picnic area would.
So the idea, I'm sorry, the picnic structure, is that similar? Would that be similar to the picnic
Correct.
structure by
Yes.
field 2?
Yes,
Okay.
similar to that, yes.
That makes more sense because I was
Yeah.
envisioning it
Yeah.
differently than that,
Yeah.
but that, I mean,
Yeah.
that's awesome. And on that same note, because there needs to be shade at that, and I did see that actually in the survey results as well. I think multiple people put that, but has there been any talk, because there's also no shade up by those ball fields on that side about, trees on, in that playground?
Oh, trees in the
Like
playground.
maybe on, and I can't, I'm not envisioning, but on the back side of the playground, or just more.
There's kind of a slope there that,
Yeah,
would be a
where
great place to
it
put some
goes up,
trees.
but it's,
We'll take a look.
I don't know. I mean, just look out here, we got, I mean, granted, this is
It's been
hundreds
growing.
of year old trees,
Yeah.
I mean.
I think there's like one or two.
Because the trees over by the ball by field 1, provide shade in that
Yeah.
partial area, but then there's just.
Nothing.
It's just a field.
We'll take a look at that.
Questions? Anyone else?
I have one more on the carpet, maybe this from Lee, and I know we've heard a little bit about this, but on the carpet replacement at the community center, is that? Did we get them like the wear and tear out of that we anticipated, or just on the earlier side that we figured we replaced it, or?
We got changes about it. We got
Is that like,
basically double the amount of traffic we thought we would have in 10 years. So yeah, I think we got good life out of it.
Okay, well, I'll jump in then. So to start at the top, let's see. I had the same question that Bobby did. Why $50,000 in FY25 for the picnic shade structure? You say it's much more massive. Why would it not be massive to put the sails over the
Well, because the structure for the picnic structure has 4 posts.
Right,
And the typical playground shade is 1 post that has a shade sail that goes outside of it. And so it's not as large of a massive of a engineered structure. So we're not constructing 4 posts.
so it's more like
Yeah.
the big top.
Yeah, so it's more like 1 post that has a large sail on it, and then that goes, and then 1 in another place, so it's not as massively engineered.
Why are we waiting till 2025 to do the group picnic shade structure?
I think we just, we put it out there. We can move it if you'd like, we have funds if you'd like to move it.
Well,
It was
there
more
are
of
a
a-
couple of things I'd like to move up too, but I know that, we've had some difficulty getting things in the past, actually. On the boards and working. Another one is the Chilpancingo Playground, which is now pushed out to 2025.
Well, so we're gonna start the planning of that, we're getting the RFP out, so, so there's no, I mean, if I get the plan done this year, there's no way I'm gonna be able to start that in the approval process before next fiscal year anyways, so that's why I put that money there.
So we haven't started it already.
No, we have not started the planning of that, so, so the RFP is in design, I just reviewed it, it's gonna go out. So we should have a design consultant on board by the end of October. And then we'll start the community process of that, so, so the board should have preliminary conceptual designs to review in spring. And so then, once that is approved, then we would go to construction documents. And so, so there's no way that we're going to break ground on that playground before fiscal year 25.
Shannon Hills Park Boardwalk, it's dilapidated. Again, why are we waiting until 25 to do that one?
Well, I think, I think there's some, we need to look at some actual options. And so, so we need to do some work. We haven't done the work on actually what we're gonna do to be able to fix that.
There's some like fishing game
Yeah.
issues there as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so,
So is this where a construction or project manager could kind of step in
Yeah.
and maybe get these projects on,
Yes.
moving faster?
yeah, and we are, we definitely are have built into the budget, getting some construction management support to help us with these, so.
Okay. Well, this to me would be a perfect one to move faster. We had some comments from people, in the survey, but also it's truly dilapidated. We've got a hazard out there, or could potentially have a hazard out there, so. Seems to me moving that one up, or at least attempting to get project manager, attention in that one, if that's the plan, would make some sense.
Remember, this is just the planning document, so we can
Yeah,
start
I know,
projects
I
and
know,
move
but,
and,
yeah.
but.
I get anxious. So I want to go back up to the number 7, the restroom replacement. Where land and facilities left it. Before we were in the 550 range, now we're now at 775. So
That's the current
accounts for
estimate.
that?
That's the current estimate based on the current, that's the most recent estimate based on the current bidding environment. And that's with a 20% contingency. So there's a fairly large contingency in there. And so, so that's what that number is.
And that's from the designer?
From the designer.
Okay.
The current building, the building itself, the one that we designed, the nice one, the building itself is $550,000. So that doesn't include any hookups, any ADA improvements. So just the building itself, the cost is $550,000. So,
Sandra, can you ask a question related to that?
Sure, please do.
It says in process with city. Is it
so the city planning department has the application. So we reduced the height of the building so that we could just go through the zoning administrator. So basically that's a planning staff review. So planning staff has that as of right now. And I haven't received comments back or an idea of when they're going to put it on an agenda yet. So we're planning on a staff only review. So, but I'm waiting for comments.
Is that typical that could be
It takes
a
time.
month,
It could be.
another month?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, it takes time. So. But they have assigned it to a staff member, so.
That's good. That's good.
Again, that would, I think would be a great one to be in the land in the bucket of the project manager to really, take that off the hands of, who's that, Michelle?
Yeah, that's me right
you,
now. So,
okay.
yeah.
Take it off your hands and really, you've got 1,000 things on your plate. That would probably be a great one. The camera, so $60,000 bonds, so we're still waiting as land of facilities, I think, to see a plan.
Well, so land and facility said, so those are placeholders more than anything else at this point in time. So land and facilities requested staff look at a more comprehensive security overview. So I have received RFPs for a security consultant. So this money right now is to kind of pay for that, hopefully. So hopefully in October we'll have a security consultant that we can move
We're
forward with.
going to bring that as a recommendation to the board.
Correct.
Got it.
Mhm.
So the Dinosaur Hill is also pushed out to 25. Any chance that could be moved up? That's item 23.
Oh, they're replacing of the stairs signage and topsoil. Tom, is that something you could move up?
Yeah, well, the signs are being worked on.
What does that mean?
Well, I have an order with the sign shop.
Yeah.
For replacing the signage.
Okay.
And what we've decided to do is actually move them down the hill on much taller poles. So they're not where people in the parking lot can actually get to them. Hopefully that'll solve the problem because we've replaced them multiple times. And it's just a graffiti magnet up there.
We have replacing the stairs and adding topsoil at Dino Hill. You have that in fiscal year 25, Tom.
The topsoil is a big deal, but I'm not sure the stairs, need to be part of one big project. The stairs are,
The stairs to me are the most important thing up there.
yeah.
So,
So again, the question, I guess, would be, why 2025? Can we not do it sooner?
I think I'm like the bottom number was shocking. So, I mean, we have the funds, we can move it up. And so if the board would like us to move it into fiscal year 24, we can do that.
Well,
but,
Chilpan single
yeah.
out a year to 2025, 300,000 got removed from 2022, and not into 2024 or 2023 rather, not and now.
Yeah,
not
but Dino Hill,
2024.
yeah, I mean, Dino Hill was added, and there wasn't a discussion about land and facilities as to when you wanted to do that, so we just kind of put it there, but we can move that, if it's the desire of the board, we can move Dino Hill up as well.
Set that aside for a second. The ADA improvements, I don't think that the board has seen the ADA consultant.
The transition plan yet? No, this is just, this is a placeholder of some money, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Will that come to land and facilities? then, or-
It will come back to land and facilities, and then it'll come to the full board.
And we're gonna purchase another van.
Yeah,
Was that on the list originally?
it was.
Was it? Okay,
It was.
remember that.
And it was specifically to assist in providing additional childcare for schools that are that don't have space in their childcare, and to better utilize our program that is our Kids Start program that doesn't have full enrollment at this point in time. So
Which brings us back up to Kids Stop #2. It's on hold due to changes in Mount Diablo Unified School District. So if we are planning to bus kids in and fill the capacity,
then we could put that back on
put
the.
that back on,
Yeah.
yeah. And do you know what the price of that is?
I do not currently, so
Okay.
I'd have to look at that. But that would be, I mean, it is fine at this point in time.
Yeah, so I was gonna ask the
Yeah.
condition.
Anyway, we're cobbling it together, right? Yeah.
Which campuses?
At Garden Gardens.
No, I mean like the busing from other campuses, like all the elementary schools?
Well, I think the ones that are closest, we'll, we're Strandwood, Valhalla. So we're gonna target the ones that we know don't have that don't have on-site childcare spaces, so.
So if we were to move some things into 2024, capacity of the staff and or a project manager pending. Let's say we got it up to 2 million. Is that something that would be imprudent for us to do?
No, we have the funds. We can do that, and we can also we're planning on contracting a project manager to assist with moving some of this project forward.
The boardwalk seems to me at Sharon Hills, and that we should look at that. At least that's my take. I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but that to me is one that we should do.
Always good to get projects in and getting grants to demonstrate competence.
There's that. We got a lot of comments from people saying we weren't taking care of stuff.
No, I mean, and so your comments I think are
I
appropriate.
want to
Yeah.
make sure they can trust us that
You say, hey, look, we are.
nobody said, hey, the community center is beautiful, and you did a beautiful job, and you're taking good care of it, and the senior center and the teen center. Nobody said those kinds of things. It was all about the stuff they're seeing that we're not taking care of.
That was the bad stuff.
Yeah. So that would be one. If we could move move Chilpancingo up. That's just been, a dream for quite a while. That's a big ticket item, and Michelle, I understand you say no, but if we got a project manager involved in it, could we maybe get it done by next summer?
I don't know. Just knowing the hoops we have to jump through for the planning and approval process currently. The board can't just say, yes, I want to do that. And then we can go out and then, and then get bids. I have to go to the city at this point in time because we don't have any autonomy on that. And so, so there's just understanding the process that we have to go through. It is unrealistic for me to say that we can break ground next summer. I might kind of get a design, yeah. But the city process is the wild card on that. And we don't have the autonomy to be able to do.
Especially because it's new, it's not like being kind.
Right, it's not, so.
Well, then the other one, I guess, would be Dinosaur Hill. Seems like the sign should come out of operating. I don't know that needs to be part of our CIP. Adding topsoil is a big deal. I recognize that. Replacing the stairs. I don't think that's necessarily a 2025 item. I would hope it wouldn't be. You would hire a contractor to go out there and build the stairs. We don't have permits or anything for that, do we?
No, that would just be replacement. We'd be fine with that. So, okay, but we can move that up.
So those are just my ideas. Are there other board members who have ideas about maybe changing some of this one way or the other? And you don't have to agree with me. I certainly respect that.
I see, emphasis to try and pull things forward as best as we can and show a lot of progress in making these improvements. And we do have the budget, do we have, the bandwidth to deliver all these projects? But I think more importantly, maybe there's opportunities in which we may be able to package certain improvements that are similar in nature or for some cost efficiencies. If we, I don't know, shade sail, for both locations, as part of one contract might be a way to expedite the, both things at once. I mean, it seems like you get a contractor on board to do one, you might as well have them out there and do both at the same time. And, it's under one contract, maybe there's some cost efficiencies as well as speed of delivery that we
And
can.
maybe the boardwalk and the stairs at Dinosaur Hill could be done by the
Yeah.
same.
what I-
You're not really gonna, when it's not at the same location, you're not necessarily going to get the same, we're not gonna
But
necessarily.
considering them two separate projects in 2 different years, it
Yeah.
could be bundled together just as a way to get them moving.
I mean,
Or
yeah,
similar.
bundling it
Yeah,
together
similar.
isn't gonna get us moving faster, just allocating the funds, we can get that done. One of the concerns about bundling projects that aren't at,
Same size.
that aren't the same site is that, you're not gonna get any economies of scale because they have to, they have to mobilize at either site,
Mhm.
as well as I have different contracting rules. So,
Oh,
so when I start creating a project at 2 different sites that are that aren't the same,
Mhm.
okay, that different bidding requirement.
right.
Okay, so I would prefer to go, okay, we're gonna do the stairs. The stairs are their project in and of themselves,
Yeah.
not the stairs in the boardwalk.
I just wonder, would you get like maybe more interest from contractors to be able to have a larger project to do versus smaller ones?
I don't necessarily think that's.
Do you think you'd have-
It's not about getting the contractors, it's about making sure that we have the appropriate plan.
Mhm.
And identify the scope of the work and that the plans are accurate. So like, I can't just, I have to have a design of the boardwalk, right? I can't just say, okay, I'm gonna hire a contractor to come fix it. Well, it needs to be engineered. I need to make sure that all of our liability is taken care of, so it needs to be designed properly, right?
Mhm.
So, so those are some of the
Yeah, a lot of front end
considerations.
activities
Yes.
that need to happen before it
Correct.
actually gets under construction.
Right.
Is the boardwalk at Shannon Hills is the intent to replace it like it is?
That's the plan right now. One of the reasons why I kind of wanted to, while it needs to be fixed, I kind of wanted to push it out. Was that if we got bond money and we were looking at adding a playground at that site, we might looking at that entire park and what we might do there separately. But we would like, it's a very nice feature of that park. So, I don't necessarily think taking it out without talking to the people who are in that community is the appropriate thing to do. But if we had an opportunity to look at that entire site, then maybe it might be something different.
And it's got a very small park there.
It's a long, but yeah,
No, I mean the park, but the playground.
it's not a playground, it's a
It's a-
sand, it's a sand.
Little sandbox. and-
Yeah, it's a sand feature, so there's no climbing, it's a sand water table thing. So that's what there. But I mean, if we're gonna replace the boardwalk, I would like to replace it with Trex. Or something, that is gonna be, more durable, and not, as it is,
So
so,
less maintenance.
right, correct.
Well, it was called out, in the survey as something that we're not taking care of. It's described here as dilapidated. And while I understand the interest in trying to do things globally for the entire park, there may be more reasons to do it now.
And if the board would like us to move it up, we can do that.
Thoughts from guys?
I support moving that up. I support moving that up and the Dinosaur Hill. I think those are two things that go to help benefit the local parks and would show a sign. Also, to that point, I mean, we're talking about the planning of this. I mean, even if we approve this, when would the planning for the boardwalk even start to happen? I mean,
We're gonna start, we have to have a staff meeting and figure out what priorities are, but we're gonna get a project manager on and identify what.
in the ballpark, I mean, I'm just trying to this could draw out, because my thing with, to Sandy's point, I think that you brought this up, is if we kick it to 25, then the planning's not even gonna start until.
Right.
It's just gonna let's get started on it, and then the event, something happens in between now and then, still probably have that opportunity, but I think it shows a good sign to another area of town that, hey, got something that needs fixing and we're gonna fix it.
As long as you guys feel you guys have the capacity to do it. I mean, it's just, it's a lot. of
I'm,
stuff.
it is a lot of things, but you know, but we're gonna get some consultant
That's why I
help.
thought maybe packaging could help, you know, somewhat.
It doesn't, but we're gonna, what will help is getting a consultant
Yeah.
help to identify, to help with some of these things, so.
Yeah, the sooner the better, I think. I agree with him.
Are the shade sails? Um. Like the ones I've seen at a distance at other farms? The new ones,
I think so.
okay,
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah, something like that.
They're nice, but.
yeah.
Yes,
I have not seen them up close and personal, but I was across in one of the other fields a few months ago and what are those?
Do you think that would be something we should try push up?
Well, it is.
Well, I
It
certainly
is,
think so.
yeah,
like
I think
The
so.
one for the.
Oh, it's,
um,
it's
The group
It is-
picnic
it's-
shade,
It's 25.
well, the.
No.
I think
No,
it's-
yeah, 24
Yeah.
and.
The group picnic shade structure. the
That-
big-
Yeah, I
the big
would,
one with the four posts.
I would also.
That
do
one's-
moving that.
well, okay,
That was one originally with a metal roof and it wasn't a shade sail
Yeah.
structure.
Right,
yeah, right.
So,
But I think, didn't they
shade
poured
structure.
the slab for that with prepped for embedding the posts into it? But I thought that was a prep thing. We couldn't afford the overhang, but we did prep for it, I thought.
is
Anyway,
the one over near the other one we have, is that one metal as well?
no,
No.
those are shades.
Okay. Well, we may look at that shape pop up, so, but yeah, so. So, okay, we'll move that up.
all right, any other comments or questions, concerns? Anything public comment on this?
Nope.
Members of the public?
Yeah.
No. No worries.
Nope.
So we're just looking for consensus. So.
No, I'm just looking for an adoption, a motion.
Oh, right.
Well,
Kind of crazy sometimes when you click the wrong back button.
yeah, should I entertain a motion? or something?
Yeah, hang on a second. They have to pull it up anyway. Meeting.
The other things were done, so they shifted us to like fire meetings now.
Oh, what things did I
There's a
do?
light.
Yeah, no, it's just like. Prior meetings, we're in prior.
Oh,
meetings now.
because we already started, yeah.
Oh, we have right at 6.3 to adopt the fiscal year 2022 capital improvement program proposed projects. Entertain a motion to adopt as amended.
Yeah, include adoption would be as amended with the addition to fiscal year 24 of projects 6, 8, and 23.
Thank you, Bobby. Second? Okay. Chair Benson seconded. All in favor? Aye. 5-0, Susie. Okay, ahead of us again. Okay, item 7, global reports from committee chairs and opportunities at meeting dates. Okay, second. Land facilities, we had to postpone a couple of meetings waiting for some information to arrive, so we don't have any report. Personnel, you met on Tuesday.
We met on Tuesday, and we had the luck and the fortune of reading up to section 900. The handbook, a lot of reading this week, but I think we got a lot more done, and we got one more meeting to go, and we'll call it done.
Wow, impressive.
Please pass it on to the attorney.
Your
Say you're
turn.
impressed?
Yes.
Yes, we're impressed. Thank you. Okay. We've got a no nonsense committee going over here. Thank you.
More to come.
Budget and finance, you guys met this afternoon.
So we met this afternoon, at a productive meeting. We'll hear more about it at our next meeting in 2 weeks, about transferring some funds, which look very reasonable. And we are in good shape. Was glad to see the numbers.
Great, thank you. Let's see, program committee, you met on Monday, looks like.
We did, we got another report, more conversation about Blues and Brews and kind of the future of the event. And so I think coming back at our next meeting.
No, yeah, it'll either be the next meeting or the last meeting in October, so.
We'll get a wrap up about this year's event and thoughts and plans for future years.
That was a good meeting. I think that's all we have there, so move to item number 8, board announcements and request to staff. Bobby.
Yeah, I sent it, I don't know if it went to junk, but I sent everybody an email about
Oh,
Relay
yes.
for Life. And so I'm also on the city about this too, and so I'm gonna get them signed up. But yeah, I mean, you know, Ken Housefeld, we got Relay for Life, it's in Pleasant Hill Park. It's much more dialed down than it, you know, had been in years before when we were 24 hours out in Pleasant Hill Middle School. So this is 12 to 7 on the 30th. And yeah, the Pleasant Hill Recreation Park District, City of Pleasant Hill have a team. Thank you, Susie, for signing up, and you signed up. You signed up,
Yeah, could you
yes.
send it around again?
I will.
I filled it all out. There were 2 ways to do it, and then I got invited onto another team. So I
Yeah.
didn't quite know what to, so I did.
I'm gonna send everybody an individual link to
Thank you.
their individually.
I definitely will sign up.
Yeah, thank you.
That was through the spirit committee email, Abby said.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, is that it, Bobby?
That's it.
Do it.
Looking forward to Tinkers and Drinkers this weekend. Yeah, I'll be there and, you know, I got an
You
opportunity.
dress up like Luigi?
Yeah. Well, I'll be kind of double hatted, if you will, because I'm also helping with the Pleasant Hill Community Foundation. They will be having a booth there as part of the sponsors. But I had an opportunity to kind of see the Santa's workshop, as it was so dubbed, you know, of all the people working diligently to put the items in the box. And even though they're a little bit smaller than in years past, I'm just so impressed with how much can go in there and how many different projects that can be done in this little box. So definitely looking forward to that. Yeah, and then we had our program committee. I think one of the main takeaways for me on that committee is just having a better perspective on, you know, who it is we serve at the end of the day. It was kind of enlightening. It was kind of coming down to what we talked about, like, you know, programs and who we're really trying to bring to the parks at the end of the day. So just, you know, I've been ruminating on that for quite some time now, and I'll be looking at Tinkers and Thinkers and seeing like the different people who are there, some of the intergenerational activities that are planned for that event, you know, with the ice cream making, with the what is it, the senior Commission on Aging.
Yeah, Commission on Aging, yeah,
So
so kind of, we got some boosts going on there.
yeah, so yeah, just excited.
Cool. Thank you, nice report.
Yeah, that's the only thing I was gonna report is that this whole, my entire week was taken up by purchasing massive amounts of frozen pop. We have 2,600 pops stored in the freezer, ready to give away on Tinkers and Thinkers, and 32 gallons of milk to make ice cream. You know, on this. And that was my entire week, basically, which is you know, just buying stuff en masse. So I'm looking forward to Saturday as well too. I can't wait for kids and sticky fingers and all that. It's that's it.
What's the weather supposed to be like? I don't know.
It's gonna be a good fall weather, yeah, like high 70s, low 80s. So because the year past it's been hot, really hot. And so I'm hoping this is a nice fall weather. We won't have a lot of older folks because our theme is an intergenerational theme. So we're actually bringing in a lot of residents from nearby assisted living facilities. So there'll be a lot of older folks, and the whole purpose was to get these folks interacting with the young kids and these activities. And so I think it's gonna be really nice. Boost basically to get these people interact together. So we're looking forward to that. Yeah.
Nice report. Sandy.
And Tinkers and Thinkers is noon to 3, right?
Noon to
Yes.
3.
Mhm, great, okay. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that too. That's one of my favorite events of the year. And had spirit lunch today. It was excellent. It was Austin was the host of the lunch. It was next to Virginia Hills Safeway at a whole deli there.
Lucian's craft sandwich.
Very good, very good. So it was nice to see about a dozen or so people there. That was fun. I know they've got another event coming up on the 28th out here to help commemorate Hispanic Heritage Month. And I think it's right here out here at the park, right? Like a potluck if you want to participate. I don't know that one I may miss because I'm coming in from New York the night before, but I'll see. But I don't have anything else to say. Thank you.
I know the Tinkers and Fingers are partly at the community center, partly in the park. Where is the?
Senior center.
I say seniors?
Yeah, you said community center, then
I'm
the senior
sorry,
center,
I'm sorry.
and then the outside area next to the senior center.
Next to the senior center, so it should be pretty obvious where the booths are for picking up the box.
The boxes are inside
Toward the back.
to the back,
Oh,
yeah.
okay, so they're not in a under overhang.
Yeah. So there'll be a welcome outside and they'll direct you to where you need to go, but yeah.
All right.
There's an app that they drew and he's gonna hand it out.
I know.
The last thing is that it's that time of year when we need to review our general manager, and so all of you should expect to receive an email from me with a survey form. And a deadline for filling it out, getting that to me. I'll then consolidate all of our comments and we will put together a closed session probably prior to the next meeting. Michelle,
Yeah.
hopefully it's not that jammed with business and stuff that we can take an hour to consider everybody's comments and discuss what the managers review. Okay, that's all I have. And with that, I'm going to adjourn at 9:30 exactly.